I was not raised in a Christian home, and neither was my husband. Because of that, we had very limited exposure to church. We were married in 1983, and our firstborn son, Ken, was born in 1986. Joe came along in 1990, and Missy in 1994. About 1985, when our firstborn was 2, we decided we would like to have our children get a religious background. I myself came to Jesus as a direct result of a group called the Katy Christians Women Club. They had monthly luncheons with great speakers. It was one of the speakers whose story spoke directly to me, and I called it right there on the altar that day and there at the luncheon. I then went to the walk to Emmaus number 149 in Sealy, Texas, and took discipleship 1, 2, and 3 training in Katy, Texas. We joined Holy Covenant United Methodist Church in Katy, Texas, and we were there almost 10 years until we moved from Texas to rural South Central Pennsylvania. Rural life was so very different. Nothing I'd ever experienced compared to the close-knit German-born borough we encountered in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. Nevertheless, we found a church home and continued to worship at a United Brethren church similar to the United Methodist Church. We had a social group of believers and became close friends, even camping together every holiday weekend and at other times of the year, using camping as part of our church ministry. We were one of those families who were at church every time the doors opened, and it was usually one of us who closed up the church. As our children got older, they were also very involved. I was very involved in women's ministry and teaching Sunday school, but I found my passion in youth ministry. Who would have thought I'd love all of those loud music, all-night lock-ins, trips to Acquire the Fire, Creation Christian Music Festival, 30-hour famine, and a myriad of other events and concerts. I spent almost 13 years as a youth leader, involved with the SHAPE Spiritual Gifts program, and a counselor who recommended areas congregants could grow and participate in our church activities. Ken graduated from Lancaster Bible College in 2008 with degrees in youth ministry, pastoral ministry, and world religion, eventually moving back home after finding employment with the youth advocacy in a neighboring town. Joe went to Rochester Institute of Technology in college for computer science in New York, and Missy was in high school class of 2012. It was 2006 that I developed thyroid cancer. It was eventually removed, but because I had an autoimmune disease known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, my thyroid had wrapped around my vocal cords. There was damage to my parathyroid glands from the unusual swelling in my neck. I lost my voice for almost a year, but didn't need further cancer treatment. I did, however, end up with every side effect possible after losing my thyroid and started having seizures in 2009. I was prescribed 2 years of anti-seizure medicines, which made me feel like a zombie. It turns out that these were actually attributable to metabolic syndrome and extremely low calcium, magnesium, potassium, etc. Through all of that, God was good, and my family and my church family helped us through that difficult time. This is where the train goes off the tracks, because up till now, things are going well. It's easy to be on fire for the Lord when things are good. We had our ups and downs like everybody else, but nothing prepared us for what was about to happen. We had an argument with Ken at the dinner table one night, and he stormed off saying he's getting his own place. He threw some things in his car, and he went to go with a friend. Early the next morning, Joe called and said Ken had driven to RIT, a 5-hour drive, through the night, and was in his room sleeping. Joe said Ken made no sense. It kept saying that Mom and Dad are tracking me through my cell phone, and other crazy-sounding things. We told Joe to take him to the ER. He needs to be evaluated by a psychiatrist. Joe had talked to a friend who was a nurse there, and she told him to call the police and have them bring him in. He did, and Ken cooperated with the police and the hospital. A nurse called me from Rochester to say the psychiatrist wouldn't be in till the following morning, but they would keep Ken overnight so that he could be evaluated. I said great and was very thankful. The mental health options in our small rural community were so sparse and not available at all for young adults. Imagine my surprise when we found out that Ken was released 4 hours later without ever seeing a psychiatrist or given any medication. We didn't know much more for about 3.5 months. Ken was a missing person. Because he was 25 years old, there wasn't much that could be done. None of his friends heard from him. He was not on social media either. I guess we were in shock, and we fell into limbo when we heard nothing from him at Thanksgiving. Then on a Thursday night in early December, several of Ken's friends came to the door and wanted me to wake up my husband around 10 or 11 o'clock in the evening. I knew something was terribly wrong. but they wouldn't tell me. Right about then, Missy came home, and she got Mike up. I was sitting on the floor because I couldn't even stand up. I'd known these kids, they're now 22 to 25 years old, since elementary school, so I knew it was bad. Ken left our table on August 29th, 2011. He got to Joe's on August 30th, 2011. He got to the hospital and was released that evening, and he died within 24 hours of leaving the hospital on 9/1/2001. He was dead all that time. It was thanks to one of his friends who was looking at a website for unidentified deceased that we even found him. She saw his tattoos and the clothes he was wearing, and she knew it was Ken. He was wearing the Spider-Man hat that I had bought him and a favorite t-shirt we all recognized. I should tell you that Ken was almost 6'10" tall and easily 350 pounds. He stands out in a crowd. What we know what happened is this much. He drove to New York City. He had never been there, nor had any friends there. He went into a 10-story apartment building and told the doorman he was going to a party on the 4th floor. That apartment was vacant. He got on the elevator, went up to the rooftop, where he walked to the ledge and jumped off. He fell 10 floors and died. Mike found out this because the New York City coroner reviewed the security footage from the roof and said that Ken was there alone and no one pushed him. We had no idea why he would do this. Everyone he met loved him, and he was so strong in his faith. Since 8th grade, he's wanted to be a youth pastor, and that desire never wavered. A counselor told me that 25% of bipolar people commit suicide during their first depressive episode. That is scary and so not acceptable. We had to have him cremated in New York City. We had his memorial service later on December 19th in Pennsylvania. We were all broken. We still are. It was Missy's senior year of high school, where she had the lead song in the Christmas show and lead role on Fiddler in the Roof. Joe never returned to finish college. Mike and I went right back to work and back to church. How could we not keep going? We had to. Ken's car was towed and sold at a police auction in New Jersey, 10 days after he was in New York City. Even though he still had an outstanding bank loan, they sold it anyways. We didn't find that out for another year, as his license plates were entered wrong in the New York City database. The police hadn't looked in the glove box. Otherwise, they would have found the owner's manual and a copy of his registration showing our address and insurance cards. It was all still there. I was only able to find that out by the police auction records of who they sold it to. Eventually, Missy went on to Belmont College in Nashville, where she still lives. She completed a 3-year contract for Young Life in Auburn, Alabama, and now works as operations manager for WeWork Incorporated on Music Row in Nashville. She is currently recording an extended play to be released June 1st, signing an original song that she wrote. Joe now works as a Road 1 runway inspector in Frederick, Maryland. We moved here in 2014. We needed a change, and we wanted to be closer to Missy. It's so hard to share without me breaking down and crying, and I don't even know how to edit myself. I'm slowly coming back. I usually say that I'm good with Jesus, but I'm still a little angry at God. I'm working on it. Most of our friends had stopped coming by. It's uncomfortable for people when young people pass. No one knows what to say, but I know. Just be there. No one has to talk. Just give hugs. Say Ken's name. He was our firstborn, and he died at age 25. Acknowledge that he existed, and we weren't horrible parents. Most folks who know us already know that. Sadly, mental illness can come along in anyone's life. Rich, poor, smart, slow. I only ask that we raise awareness for suicide prevention. No parent should ever have to bury a child. Thank you.